if you've noticed people grasping onto the one thing you did to justify their continual poor behaviour while bypassing the 100 things they did, or if you're curious about why people create bigger catastrophes to avoid accountability, this confession explores the crushing feeling people can't sit with and why real change requires that discomfort. Okay, hey, this is Francisca and this is my mid-crisis life, and today is Crisis Confessionals. So I'm still in the throes of bereavement, clearly, of grief, and I'm working through that, and everything's just a little bit of a mess and getting put on the back burner, but you know what? My overachiever brain is going to have to just deal with it at this point in time. That's not what I wanted to talk about today. So, all right, it is to do with my friend that passed away. But, okay, so anybody who has been keeping up will know that around like April, May, maybe June time, something like that, I made a decision to end or to challenge a lot of one-sided relationships that I had in my life. So there was a lot of people who kept borrowing money off of me and weren't really investing in the relationship, not just through money and not because things are supposed to be transactional, but because, things need to at least be reciprocal, right, within a relationship. Anyway, I made the decision I was going to stop doing that, and I told each one of them without like prejudice, without being rude, and also without being apologetic, look, this is just where I'm at. I'm not lending anybody any money anymore. Anyway, one of my friends took it pretty badly. Now, this is a relationship that was already, for a lot of different reasons, really one-sided. It wasn't just about the money. This was a person that, if I wanted to see this person, I always had to go to them. I always had to drive to them. I moved to Liverpool and I still had to drive to them to see them. I moved to Costa Rica and I still had to drive to them to come and see them. It's a person who didn't really have much interest or much investment in what was going on in my life, never asked me what was going on, never asked me how things were going. If I ever wanted to talk about anything that was going on in my life, I had to interject and literally force the issue, and then it would get like 3 or 4 minutes of airtime before we went back to talking about the same repetitive things that she wanted to talk about: her life, her family, her colds, her children, her psychoanalysis of her children and her life and her colds and whatever else, right? Okay, cool. She didn't really support me. She didn't really celebrate the things that happened in my life. I did some really big, amazing things, and she didn't even acknowledge it, actually, really. Like, there were all these underhand comments that happened whenever I was at her house, because I'm in her house, I'm expected to be doing stuff and to be cooking and to be helping and all of this stuff. But it's like, if I don't come to your house, then I don't see you and you don't see me, right? So I've made the effort already to come in. Well, anyway, and then, this whole thing where she was like trying to convince me to go on this holiday, and trying to convince me, and giving all of these multiple options to go on the holiday, until I said, yeah, okay, cool, I'll come, but I won't bring the car. And then she was like, oh, maybe we should try a different date and I'll get back to you about it. And I think there was just like this big, big issue with me just consistently being a people pleaser in my life, having really no boundaries, not being able to say no, not being able to say to have those boundaries, and not feel safe to be in relationships with people where I'm like, actually, no, I don't really want to do that. Or actually, could we focus on my needs for a little while, or just, no, I don't like that, or whatever, right? It's been an issue with me. Anyway, I don't rehash all of this stuff. I'm not bringing it up to rehash it and to go back over it again and to, talk with melees about these relationships, because whatever, it is what it is, right? And I'm not that type of person to just kind of hold on to and go over things. But I tell you this information for context, because as my friend said earlier when I spoke to him about it, he was like, oh, there's a punchline, right? So when I made the decision to say to this person, like, no, right, I'm not lending you any more money. I'm not lending anybody any more money. In fact, actually, that's where I'm at the moment. She was okay at first, and then made a comment and said, oh yeah, you've not really been around, or you've been missing. And that kind of was like, I really haven't been missing, actually. Like, for the last 3 or 4 weeks from when I decided, okay, I'm going to stop putting so much into this relationship. I'm just going to kind of meet somebody else's energy where they're at. Maybe from them, but before that, no. So for once, for the first time, I was like, yeah, no, that's really not true. And I literally sent a list of all the times I tried to contact her, all the times that I'd reached out and she'd not responded, and all the times that I'd tried to ask her to come out with me or whatever else, right? And just, there was no response. And said, and other than that, you've messaged me twice and asked me for money, and you also said you were going to get back to me about this holiday that you no longer wanted to go on once I wasn't taking my car. And she says, oh, well, look, I'm really sorry, this, that, and the other's going on in my life. Like, sorry if that's the impression that you got. Also my aunt passed away and I've been dealing with that. And I got back to her and I said, yeah, man, look, it's not a big deal. Like, it's just where I'm at. Like, it's not personal to you. Like, and I'm really sorry to hear about your aunt. That sucks, right? Anyway, she went away and thought about it and came back and just basically told me about myself and called me like petty and ignorant and arrogant and like started throwing all these insults at me. And I was trying to say to her, look, I'm not here insulting you. Like, I'm not calling you names. Like, I think all that's happened is I've just said some stuff that you don't like, and I've called you out on some of your behavior, and you don't like it. And now, as a reaction to that, you're trying to denigrate my character and make it about me and how I'm all of these awful things. So anyway, that relationship got left there. I was like, all right, cool. Like, I've known you for 20 years. We've been friends for 20 years. We've raised our kids together. This is the first time I've ever said to you, I don't appreciate your behavior. And I've come to you and I've said it in a very matter-of-fact way. I've said it in not an unkind way. I haven't called you any names. And this is how you respond to that challenge. So, all right, cool, man. Like, say no more, right? Say no more. So anyway, after my friend passed away, I got a text message from her husband saying that there was like some link to some website or something where people could go and pay their respects, or some other stuff if you wanted to write something, whatever else, yeah. So I messaged this friend of mine that I'd fallen out with and said, hey, I know you didn't know this person really well, but also I know that you met her a couple of times. Like, this is what's happened. She's passed away very suddenly. Here's a link if you want to make any comments or whatever else. This person got back to me and just wrote, that sucks. And I was just like, wow. Wow. And I was pissed, right? So I messaged back and said, like, good one. Good one. Like, how very witty and intelligent of you to come back with that line. Like, bitterness really isn't a good look, basically. And she wrote back to me, she said, oh, sorry, was that not an appropriate response? And I was like, you know what? It's not even the response, because that does suck. Like, particularly for her husband and her 1-year-old child who's now motherless, it does fucking suck. It's more the issue that you've waited for this opportunity to do something purposefully harmful in order to justify your own anger. And it's really childish, and it just smacks of bitterness. And to be honest, I feel really sorry for you that that's how you think it's appropriate to behave. And I just said, look, your behavior really is just reminding me why it is I don't want to be your friend. She told me, go away. I was like, all right, done and done. Tick, blocked, done, right? And it just like, I'm just flabbergasted, to be honest, that a 43, possibly 44-year-old adult has thought that their feelings, their angst, their upset, their resentment about something that happened overrides the ability to have humanity and the ability to just have a level of common decency and common courtesy about a person who's dead. Like, whatever's going on between you, there is like a much bigger picture going on here that isn't about you proving a point, right? And what it reminded me of, right? It reminded me of this conversation that I had with my mum when I was in my early 30s. I was living in Liverpool, and God told me, go and see your mum. Go and see your mum, take her some flowers, and just tell her that you forgive her for all of the stuff that went down when you were a kid. And I turned up at my mum's house, flowers in hand, my heart literally on my sleeve. Mum, I just wanted to come and see you. I wanted to tell you that I love you. I wanted to let you know that whatever happened in the past, whatever mistakes you made as a parent, and she made some fucking whoppers, right? It's all forgiven. The minute that I said the word forgiven, my mum lost her shit. She was like, forgive it. You think you have the right to forgive me? How dare you come here with your supercilious, like, same thing, like, you're arrogant, you're ignorant with your petty issues, coming here and telling me that I'm forgiven. And like, the whole thing just went fucking sideways. And I just remember just being like, what on earth is going on? Like, I've come here to give you grace, to give you love, like, and this is how you're responding to it. And we ended up in this conversation where she was very emotionally charged, and I was just trying to understand. So rather than me being emotionally charged and her being emotionally charged about all of the shit that went down when I was a kid, I was just like, okay, cool. So you feel like this. Where's that come from? Where's that come from? Where's that come from? We worked all the way back to the starting point for her. And she was like, yeah, because at 12, you chose to go and live with your dad, and you've chosen everybody else over me. She didn't say these exact words. I'm paraphrasing, but basically I've chosen everybody over her from the age of 12, and it's my fault because at 12, I made a decision to go and live with my dad after she'd locked us in the house and then sold our house while we were gone for 2 weeks and disappeared and gone on a holiday that we were supposed to go on, and then sent us a postcard from that holiday saying, I wish you were here. Like, and I get that, like, she was clearly out of her mind when she did all of those things, but it's like, I was 12. I was 12, but in her mind, she's completely justified for the way that she feels about me and the way that she acts towards me, because for her, it's a rejection that she could not fathom and that she could not accept, right? And I was talking about this situation with my friend, with my ex-friend, and how she responded and how kind of catty and callous and just like bitter, like just bitter lemons, what a response that was. And he started talking about responsibility, and he started talking about how it's so difficult for people to take responsibility for their actions. And I really do feel like that's true, right? In my house with my kids, I often catch myself saying the word fault, right, and changing it to the word responsibility, because kids always want to be like, it's not my fault, it's not my fault, it's not my fault, it's your fault, it's your fault, it's his fault, it's someone else's fault, right? It's not my fault. And I'm like, it's not about fault. Fault's about blame. Fault's about shame. Fault's about like judgment, right, and condemnation. Responsibility is about, oh, I take responsibility for this, right? I don't need to feel shame about it. I just need to understand that there's something that I did that I need to take responsibility for so that I can do things differently next time, right? And I think the thing is, right, is that beyond even responsibility, it's about the idea of accountability, right? Being accountable for your actions. And I think that oftentimes what happens, like, or what I see as a pattern, particularly like as an example with this example with my friend, with the example with my mom, is that people grasp onto the one thing that caused them pain out of the situation, and then use that as an anchor to justify continued continual poor behaviour, right? So the one thing that my friend could grasp onto was that she had a bereavement, and I said, that sucks. Because the immediate message she sent back to me was, you're this, you're that, you're the other, you're a user, you're blah, 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 all the rest of it, yeah. I hope you have a good life. And if it doesn't, well, that sucks for you. And I'm like, what do you mean it sucks for me? What kind of a way is that to talk to somebody, right? Oh, well, that's what you said to me. So that's upset her. But the thing is like, that focus on that one thing, right, of what that other person did to you. I said it sucked that her aunt died, right? I'm so sorry. That sucks. Yeah. I rejected my mum at the age of 12. It bypasses the 100 other things that you've done to get to this point. Whether or not what I said was right and wrong, whether or not what I said was reactive or not, whether it was the right thing to say, whether it was callous, whether I meant it or I didn't, right? There's just this complete ignorance of accountability of all of their behavior and a complete focus on this one thing. And I think that when people do that, it really does show to me how wrong they know that they are, because you haven't brought up any of the other points. You've not defended with any logic or reason any of the points that I've brought to you about your behavior. You've dismissed it and minimized it and denied it and distorted it and told me that I'm too much for having these issues, that I'm petty, that I'm ignorant, that I'm arrogant, yeah? And on top of it, I'm also in the wrong for saying this one thing to you, right? And I just think that it's very clear when people do that, they really, really struggle with this idea of accountability. So the other thing that happened this week is that my adult son, who is autistic and has a number of different disabilities and different things that he struggles with day to day, right, that comes out sometimes in his behavior, and he can have these massive autistic meltdowns. And he had one last night, and it was like, 11 o'clock at night, and he's upstairs literally having a tantrum like a 2-year-old about a computer game. And I'm like, you need to calm down, you need to come off, you need to calm down. I tried so many times to say, listen, you need to calm down. It then got to midnight, and I was like, dude, people are going to sleep in the house. Your brother's got a match early in the morning. Come on, can you please just like calm it down? Can you do whatever it is that you need to do? Continued on. My 14-year-old then went in there after he was trying to sleep and was like, can you just stop? I then had to go and intervene because my adult son was losing his shit. My 14-year-old is now acting like a 14-year-old and being like, why don't you sort yourself out? Like, what, you're pathetic, blah, 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 which is just, making the situation worse. So I'm intervening. I'm telling my 14-year-old, you need to go to bed. And then I'm saying to my son, listen, like, you need to, please, just whatever you need to do right now, just stop. He starts aggressively and repeatedly punching the table while screaming, I don't give a fuck, at the top of his lungs in my face. This is not the first time. It's a constant thing, right? And then I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to call the police. Like, you're nearly 22. You're a fully grown man, and you're in my face. You're aggressing me. You're losing your shit. You're punching things. This is not okay, man. Like, this is not okay. The minute I said it, though, because of fear and because of fear of the outside, the external, because there was accountability beyond just upsetting or, I don't know, what's the word? Derailing your family's plans. Now he's able to stop, right? Because there's external accountability. But now he's mad at me. He doesn't want to talk to me. He's pissed off that I took those actions. And he feels justified in feeling that way because he feels like I'm the problem for responding to his behavior in a way that he does not think is fair, right? And I see it all the time, right? This struggle that people have to take accountability. And it's really interesting because I also had a conversation with my younger son this week. Now, I don't know if I've mentioned it, but my friend died, right? And he was well aware of that. Both my kids knew that I was going through it. It was like literally 48 hours, within 48 hours of finding this out, right? My son had built something for me, and then I was looking at the thing that he'd built, and it was slightly wrong, and there were bits missing and whatever else. And I called him down, and I was like, do you know what the bits are for this? Because, I think that it's been built wrong. Well, his ego and his pride took hold of him pretty much immediately. And he was just like, what do you mean I did it wrong? I did it for you, blah, blah, blah. And his whole attitude was just awful, right? And I'm like, okay, cool, you're 14. Like, you tried to do something. Now you're feeling, whatever in your ego. Like, I'm the man. How dare you say that I didn't put the screw in correctly, even though the thing was upside down. So he's just acting like a dickhead. And I'm just trying to be calm and just trying to resolve the problem, right? And he just continues to get more and more and more in his feelings about it. Until in the end, he's upstairs and he's muttering under his breath and he just starts being nasty. And I go upstairs and he starts saying to me things like, you know what? Maybe my dad was right. Maybe you are just a bitch. Maybe you are just the problem here. Maybe like just things that he knows are really, really callous and really unkind and really cruel, actually, to say, right? On a normal day, let alone I just found out my friend died, right? And you're here telling me that your father, who you know is abusive, who's been abusive to you, right? Who's not allowed to see you because of how abusive he is. Maybe he was right because I'm just a damn bitch, right? And that hurt me so hard. That hurt me so hard that I was just like, you know what? I don't want to talk to you. Like, yeah, you actually can fuck off right now. I don't want to talk to you. Not interested. And I went downstairs and I went in my room. And then about midnight, he came downstairs knocking on my door. No, about 10 o'clock, he knocked on my door, trying to come and talk to me. And I was like, no, you need to leave. You need to leave. You need to shut my door and you need to go, because like, just as a person, like, and another person doing that to me, I don't care if I'm your mum. I don't care if you're my son. I don't care if we've got these titles where I'm supposed to have so much more tolerance for you. I'm a person and you're a person. And what you did was cruel and it was nasty and it was purposely, like consciously cruel to do that. So I was just like, no, I don't want you anywhere near me right now. So he left, and then he came back at midnight, and he said, "Oh, Mum, I've had a nightmare. Can you please, can you comfort me?" And I was just like, no, I'm sorry. Like, this is not a moment in which your needs are going to supersede mine. They usually do because I'm your mum, but no, not today. I don't have the capacity for it. So he gets up in the morning and he goes off to school. And about 10:30, I get a phone call from the deputy head teacher saying that Callum has contacted his granddad on his phone, his dad's dad, and asked him to come down to the school and pick him up. But his granddad's not allowed to pick him up because he's not, on the list, right? Not on the list. So they called me, right? And I had, honestly, a good mind to say to the school, yeah, no, this is just Callum's way of not being willing to take accountability for the things that he's done and the way that he feels right now. He made it about, oh, someone just died and I'm really struggling with that and blah, 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 blah. But I thought, okay, you know what? I'm not going to do it because I haven't spoken to him about it yet. But we do need to have a conversation. So I left it a couple of days, and at the right opportunity, when it felt right, I had a conversation with him. And I was explaining to him, look, you've got this tendency, right, that when you do something that's really bad and you're now in big trouble, you've got this tendency to do this like one-upmanship thing where you create an even bigger catastrophe, right? So that now the focus has shifted from me or whatever being the issue to you needing saving, right? And I said to him, it's a really dangerous thing. It's a really dangerous game that you're playing. And it's really controlling and it's really manipulative. And you may not see it as such, but I'll tell you why it's controlling. Because what you're doing is you're controlling the narrative. You're controlling my ability to feel and respond to things in the way that I feel I should be able to in that moment. So I'm not allowed to feel angry at you. I'm not allowed to express any upset or any pain because you're going to do something that's going to one up that and you're going to create an even bigger catastrophe. Yeah. So that now I have to be, you're now the focus. You're now the victim. So now I'm dropping you to school and I'm making you cups of tea when you've done nothing to take accountability for what it is that you did. Right. And I said, the thing that worries me is that you're getting older now and you're going to be in a relationship with a girl at some point. And it really scares me that that girl is not going to be able to feel her feelings. She's not going to be able to make you accountable for things that you've done because you're going to create a bigger catastrophe that's going to shift the focus and control the narrative and manipulate the situation. It was a really difficult conversation to have. And he was not happy with what I was saying to him. But I asked him, honestly, do you not see this? Do you not see that you do this stuff, right? And I was talking about this propensity that he has for that anyway. And I was talking to him a little bit about some of the ways that his dad did that in the relationship. So his dad would fuck up royally, do things that were just completely abhorrent. And then because he didn't want to deal with being accountable for that, would do things like call me up and say, I'm going to commit suicide. So now I need to be on the lookout and I'm running around trying to save you, right? Because you've cheated on me while I was pregnant and I found out, but now you're the victim because suicide trumps cheating. And I was trying to explain that as much as I don't feel that you are that person, you still are this person's child, right? And there is a propensity for you to do that. And the reason I'm talking about this, right, is that when I had that conversation with my son, I was saying to him, look, if I have to be the messenger and I have to be shot being the messenger, that's fine. I'll do it, right? But when people don't call you out for your behaviors, when people don't push you to look at yourself truly and honestly and to work on things, then they're not really doing you any favors. They're not really your friend. I'm not really your mum, yeah, if all I do is save you. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to have the conversation with you before the next time it happens and I turn around and say, I'm not saving you. Sorry, it's not happening. You need to sit with however you feel at the moment. So I wanted to give you fair warning. And the thing is like, as a parent or as a friend or whatever else, yeah, when people talk about accountability, people talk about like, oh, you have to take accountability for your actions, young man. You need to take accountability. And it's like a punishment. It's like this judicial thing, right? It's this shameful thing. It's this condemnation on you and your character, right? When people are saying take accountability. And I think that when that happens, because it feels like a punishment, people want to deflect and they want to defend themselves and they would rather project onto others rather than sit with it, right? And it's true, yeah? My friend is holding on to the one thing that justifies her position rather than the 100 things that happened beforehand. But the thing is that accountability is a really important thing if you allow yourself to sit with it, because it's the thing that enables growth. It's the thing that enables you to evolve. It's the thing that enables you to be able to look at your behavior and how you're impacting other people who are courageous enough to be honest with you, right? and address, not just address, but unpick and explore and understand better why it is that you do these things. And I think that we have to take that opportunity and be grateful to the people who give us the opportunity to do that. You know, one of the things that I look for when I'm doing parenting assessment is I look for whether or not a parent has the humility to be able to hold their hands up and say, I fucked up royally here. Like, I really, really messed up. Because for me, that is the one and only trait that is the foundation for everything that demonstrates a capacity to change. Like, capacity to change is one of the biggest things that you can judge a parent on when you're doing these kind of reports, because that's really what you want to see. But no one's changing while they're denying that there's a problem, right? And I think the problem is, to try and wrap this all up, is having spoken with my son and having watched my mom and having had this interaction with my friend and knowing how my eldest son struggles with self-awareness and accountability generally. I think the issue is this, is that it's not just that people don't want to deal with the consequences of something being their responsibility, of taking accountability for their actions, of it feeling like it's their fault. I don't think it's just that people don't want to deal with the consequences. I think it's that people don't want to sit with the feeling. They don't want to sit with that feeling that being accountable for doing something that is harmful feels. It is too much for some people. For a lot of people, it's too much to feel that awful, crushing, heartbreaking, shameful feeling that comes with saying, yeah, I did that. I did that. And that feels fucking shit that I've done that to you or to someone else or in this situation or whatever. And I know that that's definitely the case with my youngest son. He does not like to feel his feelings. He will avoid them at all costs. He likes to psychoanalyze his feelings so he can talk to you about his feelings, but actually sitting in them, he'll avoid it at all costs. And that's why he has to create a bigger catastrophe. I know with my mom cannot sit in her feelings. She cannot feel the pain of what she did to her own children, right? It's too much. So she just attacks you instead, right? And deflects and blames you. I mean, I don't know. I would say my friend is probably the same way, right? That it's difficult for her to admit failure, that it's difficult for her to feel those feelings. And that's why everything has an explanation, everything has a justification, everything is scientifically analysed. And but actually, if you look at it from this perspective or that perspective, it doesn't matter what fucking perspective you look at it from. Everything can be argued in any which way. When I write an assessment, I can argue every single point. I can decide what I want it to be, and then I can come up with an argument for it. It's not hard to do, right? Everything can be justifiable. Everything has logic and everything has reason. But irrespective of what way you look at it, there's still that feeling there, right? And I know definitely with my older son, feeling stuff, yeah, he's not down for that. Not down for that at all. So, I don't know what to say. I don't think it's an uncommon thing, basically. I don't think it's an uncommon thing that people find it really difficult to sit with how horrendously bad it feels to take accountability for really poor decisions. But without that feeling, there isn't the growth. There might be a cognitive understanding of why it is that you did it or why you shouldn't do it. But real change comes from discomfort. You have to be uncomfortable within yourself and feel that discomfort to then want to move out of it. Like, it's the impetus to be different. Okay, I think that's it for now. Something that I'm grateful for off the back of all of that. Oh man, what do I feel grateful for? In all honesty, I'll be honest, I think I'm grateful that I have learnt to sit with the uncomfortability of being accountable for things. And that was not something that came naturally to me because I didn't have parents that taught me to do it. I'm really grateful that I understand that the only way out is through. And I'm grateful that I'm able to try and have some influence on a young mind of somebody who could potentially really be quite pathological in that behaviour. And that I'm able to talk to my younger son about it in a way that maybe is more non-judgmental than it could be. And I think also I'm really grateful that I'm at a point now in my life where my boundaries are very clear, and that is giving me a lot of clarity in terms of the people that there are around me. So I'm grateful for all of those things. All right, cool. For now, that's it. Monday Mindset, I'm going to look a little bit more around the psychology of accountability and delve into that a little bit more. So join me for the next installment. But for now, that's it. Real change comes from sitting with the crushing discomfort of I did that, not cognitive understanding or justification. Drop a comment about patterns you've noticed where people grasp onto one thing to justify poor behaviour, times you've seen bigger catastrophes created to shift focus, or your own journey learning to sit with the uncomfortability of accountability.